Alright, welcome Kate. Thanks for coming.
Thank you.
And also thanks for taking the strong inventory.
No problem.
It's really going to help our counseling session today, otherwise we'd just be sitting here in silence. So
need something to talk about.
It's very helpful. So today we're basically just going through it and so you understand what it means. But it's not the end-all thing. It's not saying your career is X, so that's what you have to be.
Okay.
So kind of
That's
take it with
comforting.
take it with a grain of salt. And yeah.
Okay.
You can use it to guide you
Sounds good.
instead of telling you. Alright, so first we're going to talk about the general themes. So there are 6 main ones. You have artistic, investigative, social, realistic, enterprising, and conventional.
Mm-hmm.
I'm assuming you don't want to be here all day, so we're just going to go over kind of your top 3.
Okay.
So your top 3 ended up being artistic, investigative, and social. So for the artistic side, it was a very high score, and then your other 2 were moderate. So what artistic basically means is you're self-expressive, you appreciate your art, communication, culture, things like that. Does that sound like a pretty accurate description for you?
Yeah, that's definitely me. 100%.
In which ways?
I mean, I love art, making it and consuming it. And then I'm definitely self-expressive. I don't really hold back who I am at all, so that makes a lot of sense.
Okay, cool. And then investigative, so that's your science, medicine, mathematics, and research, things like that. So lab work, solving abstract problems, things like that. And then your social is your people skills. So people, teamwork, helping, community service, and things like that. So do those 3 sound like an accurate description of kind of who you are, your interest levels?
Yeah, I'm surprised that technically the investigative is higher than the social. I thought the social would be higher.
Well, actually, they are the same score.
Okay.
So they're
I wasn't sure
side
if
by
this
side.
order had anything to do with it. So
I think after artistic, they just went alphabetically.
Okay, that makes sense then. That makes sense. Okay.
At least that's what we're going to go with. Because you scored 49 on both of them, so.
Okay. I'm kind of shocked that they're exactly the same. Because I do like science and medicine. Some math, sometimes. I like numbers, but yeah, I'm surprised that it was right in line with like helping people, because I would think that I would like helping people more than like science and medicine, but I think they could have went hand in hand because I've always wanted to be kind of in like the medical field, I think, if anything, and the medical field is medicine plus helping people, so that makes sense.
Alright, so moving right along. So this next page just goes over your basic interest scales. So it'll give you your top 5 interest areas, which is your visual arts and designs, which sounds like it's pretty accurate right there. Healthcare services, counseling and helping, your medical science, and your performing arts. So basically what you just told me, it sounds like these are pretty accurate.
Yeah, because I've thought about like acting and things like that before, so I'm not shocked that that's high up there.
And then, in case you're curious, your least interested are finance and investing, which makes sense because, math.
Yep.
Office management, and marketing and advertising.
Yeah, none of those are interesting to me at all. I would be so bored doing any of those. So that makes a lot of sense, actually.
And so then it also breaks it down into the 6 categories of what your top interests are in each of those categories. So artistic, as we already talked about, is your visual arts and design, then your performing arts, and then also culinary arts, and then writing and mass communication. So, sounds like a good list to me.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I'm a little surprised that even though it's only by a little bit, that the culinary arts is higher than the writing, because I feel like I'd rather be a writer than a chef, but
You don't want to be a chef?
I'm not the greatest cook. I'm just interested in it. I'm not good at it.
Just like watch other people make it for you, right?
I like watching Chopped.
There you go. Same thing, right?
Yeah, same difference.
That automatically makes you a chef. So then we have the investigative. So you have your medical science, science in general, mathematics, and then your research. So again, some of those are in your top 5 interest areas already.
Mm-hmm.
And then your social is your healthcare services, your counseling, social services, testing and education, human resources and training, and then your religion and spirituality. So any questions on this? Pretty straightforward.
Yeah, all of the orders make sense because, especially for the social, like, I'm not religious, maybe like a little spiritual, but I'm not religious, so it makes sense that wouldn't really be of interest, like, career-wise to me. Mm-hmm. So.
And most of these too, you ranged in the moderate category.
Mm-hmm.
The visual arts, you scored very high, but the rest are pretty much moderate levels, except for research and then the religion and spirituality. So that makes sense based on what you're saying.
Definitely, yeah.
So, yeah. Okay. So next is your occupational scales. It will give you your top 10 strongest occupations. Again, it's not a concrete list.
Mm-hmm.
Take it with a grain of salt. So your first one is musician, and then you have speech pathologist, a mental health counselor, respiratory therapist, artist, occupational therapist, radiological technologist, photographer, physical therapist, and physician. So it sounds like a lot of those are a combination of like the medical field and helping field.
Yeah, those are all pretty much things I've considered besides like speech pathologist. I mean, I've taken a class on it and things like that, and it is cool, but I never saw myself as that. So it's interesting that it's second. But yeah, a lot of those other ones I definitely considered, or they're interesting to me. So that makes a lot of sense.
And then you can see too here at the end of each of the occupations in parentheses it has the letter for each of the 6 categories and what combination thereof. So like your musician is just your artist. Your artist is artistic and realistic. So that's something, if you're more curious about how those fit into the categories, you can look at that as well. It also gives your ones with a dissimilar interest. So your physicist, your purchasing agent, security sales agent, and a sales manager.
Yeah, none of those sound fun to me either, so.
Based on this list, I'm guessing you don't want to go in sales.
Ironically, what I work right now, so that's why it is not forever.
That's why you're in school now, right?
Yes.
So you get out of there.
Exactly.
And then again, similar to the other one, it breaks it down for each category about what your top interests are. So for artistic, you have the musician, artist, photographer, editor, ESL instructor, translator, medical illustrator, arts entertainment manager, graphic designer, so on and so forth. And a lot of these you did get a high score on. And then it goes moderate, and then you have a few that are low. And then for investigative, you have your respiratory therapist, physician, a dentist, in case you want to work on people's teeth, a pharmacist, medical technician, a vet, chiropractor, psychologist, biologist, optometrist, so basically things that end in ist.
Yes. I'm good with feet.
Right. And then it goes down from there. And then we have your social, which these are some of the ones that you scored highest on, for the most part. Right up there with artistic. So you have your speech pathologist, which we just talked about, your mental health counselor, occupational therapist, your physical therapist, your recreation therapist, a registered nurse, a social worker, bartender. Seems very random.
Yeah.
Compared to your previous ones.
It's a helping and caregiving field.
I mean, people tell you your problems. See, perfect shirt. You were born to be a bartender, is what this is telling you.
That's what it told me. We're in.
I mean, bartenders are like therapists. You just don't have to
for
pay
drunk
for
people.
Exactly. So, any questions about this?
Do you have any idea what a recreation therapist is? I've never heard of that.
No. My guess is it's just a form of therapy where you do teach them recreational things to help manage kind of like coping skills.
Mm-hmm.
That would be my guess.
Yeah, I just wondered because it almost sounds like the position like a nursing home, the people who help the older people with arts and crafts and stuff like that. That's almost what it sounds like.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, that's where my mind goes. But again, don't hold me to it. Not 100%.
Yeah, that's fair.
Google. So next we're going to talk about your personal style scales. So it's basically how it's measured is you're either on one end of the spectrum or the other, or in the middle. So your top 5 are: you are likely to prefer a balance of working alone and working with people. You seem to prefer to learn through lectures and books. You probably are comfortable both leading by example and taking charge. Oh, excuse me. You may be comfortable talking about or taking risks, and you probably enjoy both team roles and independent roles. Sound pretty accurate.
Yeah, I'm not surprised that most of them are in the middle because, I would say on this section when I was taking it, I'm not really I need to work alone 100% or I need to work with a team 100%. None of my stuff was really one side or the other. I kind of like a mixture just because it would make your job more interesting to me because I don't want to do the same exact thing every single day. So it makes sense. But the part where it says you seem to prefer to learn through lectures and books, I don't know about that. But, all
right.
That's what it says.
So yeah, and then going through each of these individually, it basically so your work style is you can work alone or in teams. In this one, you're a little bit higher on the mid-range, so while you're in the middle, you're kind of closer working with others. Your learning environment is one of the few that you actually did not score mid-range on. So you prefer academic environments, things like that, but you are really close to kind of going in the middle there. So leadership style, we've already talked about. Risk-taking, you could go either way on that, right? And then team orientation, you could go either way on that.
Sounds about right.
Yeah.
I'm usually pretty much up for anything.
It sounds like it.
So I don't get bored.
You seem very calm and relaxed and just let's do it.
Basically, I'm let's
just go with the flow.
I'm yeah, sure, I'm bored.
Which is helpful. It means you're flexible, so.
Yeah.
Alright, and so this page basically just gives you a profile summary. So your high interest themes, your top 5 interest areas, your 10 strong occupations, and then your personal style scales. Down at the bottom, it gives you a response summary. So from the strongly liked, strongly dislike, how you kind of rated each question going down. It gives you a total score. And then the rest of it is just kind of gives you more background information about the occupational themes. It's basically all the stuff that we've already went over. So the one thing I did want to kind of touch on is your general occupational themes. So according to this, your career fields that you should focus on are technical writing, medical illustration, psychology, urban planning, law, and editing. So if you like arguing,
I'm glad the psychology's in there, since that's the road that I'm on.
Well, that's good.
But technical writing.
You followed the action step of picking which one appeals to you most. So good job.
Yeah.
Good step. So your career motivators for the artistic side, you like expressing creativity.
Mm-hmm.
Investigative, you like analyzing things, which kind of makes sense based on what you've told me. So you like expressing your creativity in abstract, analytical, and independent ways. And then you also like analyzing theories and ideas creatively. So
yeah, they do go hand in hand.
That's a good mixture. And again, it gives you your top occupations and your typical work tasks, the skills and knowledge you need for each of those careers. And then it goes into your work style, learning environment, basically your personal style, scales. That way you don't get bored of me just reading everything to you.
Yeah.
You can look at it on your own. But one thing I would look at when you are looking at it on your own is throughout this packet, there are these gray boxes that say action steps, and it kind of helps you give you the steps you need to take to kind of investigate those careers and kind of take the steps into those careers. So make sure you take a look at that.
Sounds good.
And so, after all of that, how are you feeling?
I feel like the artistic and investigative things could go really well with being a counselor, because the artistic part is making the sessions your own. Since each person's different, you'll have to make it based around them anyway, so you kind of have to get creative so that the sessions aren't just the same thing all day, boring to them or boring to me on both ends. And then the investigative, you are analyzing them as a person.
Mm-hmm.
So I feel the combination of those two would make sense. Then my other one being social, because I can use those two to help people. Mm-hmm. So I feel it makes sense.
Was there anything while you're taking it that kind of really stood out that you really liked, or something you really didn't like?
The test itself?
Yes.
Well, it was a simple test to take, which was nice. It was just straightforward, do you like this, do you not like this? And I noticed on there, I definitely disliked a lot of things. I know what I don't like, which helps.
That's good.
Because sometimes it can be kind of hard for me to know what I really, really do like. But there's certain occupations I'm yeah, there's no way. I'm not being an accountant, things like that.
Makes sense.
And so it's nice to at least know some of my boundaries, so that I wouldn't go into something I completely don't like. But I would just say the test is kind of long. I wouldn't say that I wish that there were half as many questions, because it wasn't that long, but just a little bit less, because I feel when it was getting towards the end, it was asking me the same things over and over, which I'm sure there's something to that too.
Yep, that's what it's designed to do, to see if you're consistent with at the beginning of the test.
Yeah, so it makes sense, but other than that, it was fine. It was interesting, because I've never taken a career assessment before.
Well, that's good.
So it would have been interesting to take this years ago, and then take it again now, and see how it would
Are you on a different career path than you were before?
So I went to a vocational school,
Mhm.
actually, in high school for 2 years, my junior and senior year. And they always have us tour that place in,
Mhm.
like, 8th grade. And when I first toured there, you had to pick, like, it was basically like a section, like how this is sectioned off into, like, art and all of that.
Mhm.
I actually chose the art section, and I looked into, like, animation and stuff like that.
Cool.
And then I ended up going into the med tech program. So eventually I realized that I wanted to be in medical. So I kind of just, like, found my own way there, basically. So, yeah.
Interesting. So, I mean, that definitely explains your results then.
Yeah. A lot of the interest, like, makes sense.
Mhm.
Like, I think with the art being so high, it's because that is what I focus on most of the time. Like, when I'm not in class and things like that, my hobbies and just what I do outside of everything else is art based. So it makes sense as to why that would have been so high, because I think even though I'm not, like, pursuing an art field, that it's still, like, super important to me. So no matter what I end up doing, I think I'm still always gonna, like, do art either way. So it makes sense. Yeah.
Alright, well, we are out of time for today.
Okay.
So I will let you take that packet home.
Alright.
So you can look over it at your leisure, and if you have any questions, you know how to get a hold of me.
Okay.
So, pretty simple, right?
Yeah. Straightforward.
Then I will see you next time.
Alright, sounds good.